Meanwhile, Nadem, you were the only one, I believe, when we were making our predictions as to what was going to happen on the final day, that actually had Chelsea qualifying in the top 5. Chelsea fans are certainly not shy in reminding of us that over the last couple of hours. I can tell you that, Nadem. Overall...
Well, he's probably a secret Chelsea season ticket holder from his time in QPR in West London.
You know what I mean? It's a bit posh for Nadem.
Oh, yeah.
Chelsea's a bit posh.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. You can't be wrong all the time.
And in the end, this game wasn't very good, but Chelsea won't care. Interesting stuff from Enzo Maresca, I thought, afterwards, coming out all guns blazing, basically saying, you all doubted me, you all said the squad was too young. Look, I've proved you wrong. He swore, obviously, as well in that statement. But I kind of think there's got to be a little bit of humility there, isn't there, if you're Chelsea? Because really, you shouldn't have come down to this last day of the season, given the start of the campaign that you had.
No, Dan Thomas. I think come the end of the season, you keep all those receipts, and if you do something good, you make sure to remind people of what they said.
Okay.
And I think for Chelsea, they have received a little bit of criticism throughout the year, and he's saying, this is real, this is what it is. Obviously, in the end, somewhere down the road, he'll probably be losing his job as such, but with this young squad, he was the one that never said, we're not going to win the league, we're not going to win the league. We were trying to hype it, we were hyping up a little bit, but then they fell off, we started to lose trust in them. But I think as you looked at that, at 5 or 6 at the, vying for this top position, you could see the inconsistencies that some of these teams had. And I just felt with Chelsea, they would actually be able to find a way, especially going up against the Nottingham Forest side, who in some ways, they're still very, very happy with their season. They're in Europe next year. Yes, it's the Conference League, but they're in Europe. Flashback a year ago, and they were fighting relegation up until maybe the last 2 weeks of the season. So yes, there was that sense of Chelsea actually had more European pedigree in this moment to be able to manage it. And as you said, it was not the greatest of games, but Chelsea found a way to do it. And I think in recent weeks, they have just been able to keep enough momentum to get across the line. So I back them. Obviously, there's a very good chance I was going to be wrong. But Dan, to be honest, the one which is wilder still was loosely, I backed Man United to be able to get a result against Aston Villa a couple of weeks ago. At the time, I felt insane for saying it. And I was concerned that this was going to go out on the internet. But it just goes to show football. It's a crazy old game, not least of all for everyone that's played there. Who was going to try and finish the season well.
No, the biggest
you need to try and finish the season well.
Oh, my
The biggest bragger on this show is a Frenchman who used to broadcast out of Paris. He's not here today.
Yeah, don't start
So
taking
there's
those
no
flowers.
point trying to steal his thunder. Nadem. Look, what we do know is
Sorry,
Maresca reads and listens to opinions. Yeah. And Maresca is prickly with those opinions. And sometimes you don't want to leave yourself open to other people having that thought because they'll just keep prodding away.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he has done a better job than the others.
In a mediocre league.
That were in there. And, yeah, I mean, in the league this year, that outside some of the top boys, I mean, the bottom, you look at Tottenham and Man United and then the 3 that got relegated and, the West Hams of this world, and Palace came strong, but, he's done the job. They're in the Champions League, so, they were never in I know they were in the title race. We discussed it at the start of the season. In terms of the league position, they were in it. I mean, they were unlikely to go all the way, but he's done and produced and delivered the remit, I'm sure, that he was given when he came in, is make this team better, get in the Champions League. And they're also in the conference final, which they're playing this midweek, which he's also not chuffed about because he had to play today. So he's ending the season as not a very happy chappy. Stevie?
Well, he needs to be careful because, these journalists never forget. They never forget. And he's actually, he needs to... They found a way, as you said, at the end of the season, because they were as bad today as they've been the last 4 or 5 weeks, but they've got results.
Yes.
And that's what it's about. But it could have been so different. If Chris Wood scores in the first half, just for the end, to put Forest 1 up, this could have been, we could be talking a whole different ball game here. Because that's what Forest love to do. Get ahead and then shut up shop. That's why they were in this position. But Maresca needs to be careful. You can't, keep your mouth closed again and don't. People are just sitting waiting for you to make a mistake now. But guaranteed.
But I think you could have done it with a little bit of humor instead of like the animosity. Just kind of say, yeah, look, I know we had a young team. I know a lot of you didn't think we were going to be able to do this, but we stayed together. We got results when we needed to, and we've qualified for Champions League.
It's the blasphemy that disappoints me, Casey. I don't think we need that.
I don't think anybody. I wonder who's. I think people have maybe asked him at times during the season in a press conference about, do you think the team is too young?
I don't think that's something that we talked about. We talked about it in the title race with the lack of experience.
I don't think he's talking about us.
Yeah.
I mean, he may well be. But I don't think he's.
It'd be a lot stronger than what he said if it was.
You know the bit that annoys me more? I would understand what he's saying if his team were playing well.
Yeah.
But when you've given us what they're giving us and scraping by, then just cool your jets. You know, if you've got a reason to have a go at people, then that's fine in my book. But the way that your team's played since Christmas, I mean, you've scraped it. So just cool your jets a little bit.
Meanwhile, Needham City celebrating third. How times have changed.
Yeah. Oh, incredible, Dan. A third place finish. Who would have thought it? The stuff dreams are made of. No, but genuinely, in that middle third of the season, coming on shows like this, I was getting hammered.
Rightly
You
so.
remember they lost 6 games in a row. It looked like everything was going wrong. Yeah, thank you. They had injuries. They had Pep pulling his hair out, scratching his face, the works.
Well, he ain't got any.
But in the last part of the season now, this final third, I think they went 11 games unbeaten or something. And for as much as it wasn't as glamorous as, say, we'd seen in years gone by, you know, the goal became very clear. They have to qualify for the Champions League. And I think the way we discuss it in this day and age, you know, you talk about the financial benefit of it and what it could mean in terms of your planning and so on. So the necessity was there. And then people were right to doubt them. I remember being on the show with the guys before saying who's going to finish top 5. And there were a few question marks about City, and rightly so. But they found a way. Certain players have stepped up in a bigger moment. And now as they head to the Club World Cup in 3 weeks' time, there's a better feel around the place. And today going to Fulham, I thought this could have been a really, really tricky tie. But overall, in the way that City played, they nullified the attack that Fulham had. And whenever they went forward, they felt dangerous themselves. So that's more like what we've seen from City. And yes, maybe the squad isn't in a position where you expect them to go next season and win the league title again. But it's trending upwards again after being at probably the lowest point we've seen in the last 10 years.
Can you imagine, though, being any of those players? This Club World Cup that keeps popping up, there would have been a mutiny.
They're dreading it.
Can you imagine finishing a long, hard season, particularly one that was as arduous as it was for City, where they were the favourites, then they hit a huge slump, came back, better but not great, lost the cup final, you know, qualified for the Champions League. All you want's a rest. Like all the other players.
Or going with the national team for a couple weeks and then get a rest.
I don't want that either.
Well,
I just want a rest. I'm thinking about booking, you know, players are booking their holiday, and this is I know it's a different subject.
Yeah, it is. I don't think we need to go
But
into
it's
it
just,
again.
I think it's just absolutely ridiculous, the scenario we're in, that these players now are going to have to go away and play in this.
But I thought Needham was extra kind to Man City because...
Well, of course, it's Needham.
I know that, but Ederson had to make a couple big saves, or that match could have got a lot more interesting. It wasn't as simple as 2-0 suggests.
Meanwhile, Stevie, Newcastle won and watched, didn't they?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, dear me. Lose against Arsenal, lose then obviously at home against Everton, yet you still qualify.
I mean, I think we all fell into the trap of Everton's got nothing to play for and they're going to win 3 or 4-0.
Yeah. That's quite a normal trap to fall into.
Yeah, but since Moyes has come in, this Everton team has been different. And regardless of having nothing to play for, they weren't just going to lie down. And the fact that they get through having lost 1-0 at home is an absolute shocker.
Yeah.
And I personally, when the final whistle went, I mean, you talk about breathing properly for once. For 20 minutes, you could see the pain in everybody's face.
Yeah.
I mean, the one-on-watch is
They were very happy when that second goal went in.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't like Pickford was standing on his head. Like Newcastle just looked so off.
Even the draw, as it was at the time at Old Trafford, when Everton scored, that draw was knocking Newcastle out.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it was for them, you know. In some way, I'm glad they've gotten in because they're an entertaining side. I think they've been one of the better sides this season. Faltered a bit at the end, but I'm glad they're back. And I tell you what, had they not been in the Champions League next year, and at one point in the second half they were not, the Isak question, which will arise anyway, would have been huge. Because if they were in the Europa League, I think Isak would have been like, and he may still be on the door, but they'll say, no, we're not selling. We're in the Champions League. We are not selling. But had they slipped into that Europa League, it would have been tough to hang on to him. It may still be tough, but it would have been even tougher to hang on to him.
Last word on Newcastle to you, Nathan?
Yeah, they can get ready for some derbies next year because Sunderland
Of
are
course,
back. That's
yeah,
all I'm
your
going
old
to say.
team.
Congrats, Newcastle. 2 big games coming up for you next year. Let's go.
Yeah,
Oh,
of
yes.
course. Yeah, that's very true.